Go inside the Crimson Tide with your hosts Rodney Orr and Gary Harris, keeping you informed on everything Alabama. Tider Insider TV, brought to you by Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports.
I know that there are some issues going to 9 games in terms of the future schedules that we've put together in terms of trying to play 2 Power 5 schools, each year. I think eventually we'll probably move to, more involvement in more SEC games. But I think this has happened so quickly, it was really hard to make a lot of changes.
Always good to start it off with Nick Saban. Good evening, everybody, and welcome into Tider Insider TV, brought to you by our good friends at Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports. Alongside Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com, I'm WVUA 23 Sports Director Gary Harris. Now, the Southeastern Conference announced last week its football scheduling format for the 2024 season, when Oklahoma and Texas both join the league and we go to 16 teams. Next year, SEC teams will again play 8 conference games and not the much discussed 9-game schedule that a lot of people had predicted. The agreement for right now is just for 2024. It's a fluid situation after that. Last week on the Paul Feinbaum Show, SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey fired back at the idea that an 8-game schedule would give other Power 5 leagues an advantage when it comes to getting bids to the college football playoff. Rodney, you can look at it 2 different ways, I guess. The playoff will expand to 12 teams in 2024. Now, it's another big week for the SEC coaches and some of the athletic administration people in this league. Alabama's Nick Saban is among a contingent of coaches and administrators from the Southeastern Conference scheduled to meet with lawmakers in Washington this week to make a case for federal assistance in regulating how college athletes earn money from their name, image, and likeness. So let me bring Rodney in, because that is a lot to discuss right off the top, but it's 2 huge stories. Let's start with the schedule. And Rodney, I'm going to just put you on the spot the way I did yesterday on my morning show on the radio. A lot of people are saying that Nick Saban has done an out-and-out face. He had been talking about 9-game schedules in the SEC for a long time, and now when the SEC spring meetings came about down in Destin, he was a proponent of an 8-game schedule. Why?
Well, I think there's probably a few reasons, Gary. I think, first of all, they had not really made any progress on that 9-game schedule. It didn't look like it was probably going to come to fruition. Alabama, as you mentioned, scheduled 2 Power 5 opponents for the next 10 years. And now all of a sudden you go to 9 SEC games along with those 2 Power 5 opponents. You look at who the supposed permanent opponents for Alabama would be. You're talking about Auburn, Tennessee, and LSU. Obviously, they're natural rivalries. Those rivalries have been in place a long time. But, I think when you look at the schedule, you got to have balance across the SEC. Obviously, they're doing away with the divisions, so you lose some of the opponents that you normally play every year. But at the same time, I think there has to be a real balance there. And I don't know how you look at it, but I think when you look at Alabama and those 3 opponents in the SEC as being your permanent opponents, it's pretty stout.
Yeah, it is. And the 2 models are the 8-game schedule with 1 permanent opponent and 7 rotating opponents, or the 9-game schedule, which would have 3 permanent opponents and 6 rotating opponents. As we said, this is a fluid situation. But I'm going to say this, Rodney. We talked about this again yesterday morning on my radio show. I know you want to preserve rivalries. But the reality of having 16 teams, whether you play 8 games or 9 games, some of these rivalries are going to go away. You can't play them all. So, we know you're going to keep the Iron Bowl. We know you're going to keep Georgia, Florida. I would hope you would certainly put Texas and Texas A&M together. The Egg Bowl. There's certain games that you can't pull off. But some of these other rivalries, whether it's Alabama, LSU, whether it might be Tennessee, Georgia, I'm just throwing some stuff out there, Kentucky, Tennessee, Ole Miss, LSU, some of these rivalries may have to bite the dust.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because, again, you've had these rivalries in place for so many years. It's part of the SEC. It's part of college football. You look at Alabama and LSU, you look at Alabama, Tennessee, you look at Alabama, Auburn. Those are some fantastic matchups in the SEC, Gary, and they always have national ramifications.
And Rodney, one thought from you on NIL. I've been saying for a long time, everybody says we got to do something. Who's going to do what? And it looks like the SEC is hoping that the federal government gets involved.
Well, we've talked about this for how long now? Over a year and a half, 2 years, and we said, listen, there's no boundaries, there's no rules. They've got to have some guidelines, and I think hopefully this is a step in that direction. All
right, we will see later this week. All right, let's get to recruiting. Alabama picking up a pair of commitments since we last joined you on TITV, including 2024 offensive line prospect Joseph Ionata from Calvary Christian School in Clearwater, Florida, 6'4", 295. Interior offensive lineman. Most of the analysts feel like he'll wind up at center. He has an impressive list of offers, including Florida, Miami, and Ole Miss. And his dad was an All-American offensive lineman at Florida State, but he's leaving the Sunshine State for Alabama. Right now listed as a 3-star prospect. I know he's a good player, but anytime Alabama doesn't get a 4 or a 5, you say, oh, wow. Tell us about this young man and why you think Alabama offered so soon and he accepted.
Well, I think the one thing you have to remember, we've talked about this repeatedly. When you come to camp at Alabama, you're evaluated firsthand. He came to camp, didn't shy away, he performed, and you have to assume that Eric Wolford really liked what he saw. Because this is a guy, and again, these rankings are going to change. You know that. When you look at him, he's probably an interior player. And you know, one thing I like about him too, Gary, is, and we talk about this a lot, is his dad was an All-American at Florida State, an All-American offensive lineman, so he's kind of grown up with it. Yeah,
2024 commit, that happened over the weekend, late last week. Alabama also landed running back Anthony Turbo Rogers of IMG Academy for the class of 2025. He's the #1 ranked running back prospect in the class, according to 24/7 Sports. He also played at Pike Road High School in Montgomery. Alabama's been on him since he was a freshman. Everybody has. I mean, he's something now. Listen, we make comparisons in the media all the time. Going to remind a lot of people of Jahmyr Gibbs. Let's be honest. He's shifty. He's fast. He's powerful for his size. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. Helped Pike Yard win a Class 5A state championship, or Pike Road. Now moving to IMG Academy. Listen, Rod, I know it's 2025 and there's still a lot of time left, but this is a young man that if this holds, you're talking about arguably, and of course you got Ryan Williams already committed in 2025 from Saraland. You could have the two most explosive players in the class committed to your program.
You really could, you know. And I like your comparison in a way to Jahmyr Gibbs, because you look at Jahmyr Gibbs, he went, what did he go over? Oh, number 12 overall, right?
Yeah.
To the Lions.
Sure did.
I mean, when you look at that kind of back, I mean, Anthony Rogers has to say, hey, look, I can go in and do some of the similar things to what Jahmyr Gibbs did. They'll utilize me. Obviously, the speed, the ability as a receiver, as a kick returner. Again, he's really dynamic, Gary. And some people already saying he's the #1 back in the 2025 class.
Yeah, huge pickup. Alabama just continues to recruit at a very high level. All right, those are future players. One of the top players in the 2023 class, Alabama freshman defensive back Tony Mitchell, has been cleared, according to his father, to participate in team activities. And he also announced a video apology on Sunday talking about Alabama giving him a second chance. He was arrested on a possession of marijuana charge back in March in the state of Florida. They worked out an agreement there, and now he is getting a chance to come back to Alabama. He seems very appreciative. Former Bama wide receiver Donnie Lee, who runs the lab workout facility in Tuscaloosa and has been working with Mitchell, told us last week, Rodney, that Tony has learned from the mistakes he's made, and he, like others that have been given a second opportunity by Nick Saban, is ready to make amends.
You know what?
One of my favorite Sabanisms is that a mistake made more than once is a decision. That's one of the things that I use as an affirmation with my daughter literally on a daily basis. The most important thing and the most determining factor after someone makes a mistake is not only do they learn from that mistake, but do they also teach from that mistake. And so that's something that Tony has already begun to do during his time at the lab over the last 2 months while he's been training, and just kind of focusing on what he could control, right? Just controlling what he can control and leaving the rest to God.
Great comments there. Now, Rodney, I'll let you chime in.
Well, first of all, I really like Donnie's comments. I think they're really sincere. And look, I know a lot of people sometimes when a kid gets in trouble, first thing they want to do is kick them to the curb. I mean, but look, think about what happened with DJ Petway several years ago. Here's a guy that got dismissed from the university, goes to a junior college. He could have gone anywhere in the country after that. He wanted to come back to Alabama and to prove he wanted to redeem himself where he made his mistake. He came here, was a really great player, had a big play in that national championship game. Remember, he blocked that field goal.
Very well.
I mean, so I think Tony's really sincere with his apology.
Yeah, he sounds like it to me. And there's a number of cases at Alabama where Nick Saban, when you've done what he asked you to do, he's given those players a second chance, and most of the time it's worked out. All right, still to come on Tider Insider Television, we will discuss what's next for Team 27, Alabama softball, moving right on to Team 28. And after a big weekend for the Crimson Tide baseball team, let's discuss what lies ahead now for Alabama up in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. It's going to be a tough super regional against #1 seed Wake Forest, but this Tide team is proving that it might be special. We'll have that coming up as well, and we'll be getting to your phone calls, emails, and tweets in just a little bit. The phone number, as always, 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882, or you can email us, TITV@WVUA23.com. We got some emails to get to tonight. In fact, we'll be right back with the only show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide, the one, the only, Tider Insider TV. And welcome back to Tider Insider TV, brought to you by Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports with Rodney Orr. I'm Gary Harris. Now, it was an exciting weekend at the Joe, to say the least. For Alabama baseball, it had everything you want. Drama, walk-off wins, great pitching performances. As we said, scoring on the final at bat, plays that took your breath away, and then finally a convincing win in the final game of the regional to continue the road to Omaha. Alabama made a statement win on, I guess started out late Sunday night, 9:36, didn't finish until early Monday morning, but they really shut the door on Boston College early. Very impressive. Got out 4-0 in the first, cruised an 8-0 victory behind Jacob McNary on the hill, who was absolutely dominant. That was after a walk-off win on Friday night over Nicholls State, and that great pitcher they had that threw 100 miles an hour, and then a very unlikely win over Troy on Saturday night, Rod, when Troy, the shortstop, had a ground ball. If he throws it across accurately, the game's over. Troy wins. He had a throwing error. Alabama took the lead. They added a couple more wins. So you win close games like that in regionals, and then when you get to the chance to put it away against a Boston College team that was kind of depleted in his pitching, you look dominant. Really an impressive performance for Alabama going through Nicholls State, Troy, and Boston College.
How about this team?
Yeah.
I mean, it's been amazing, since they've had the transition, the coaching, the way they've responded, and once again, responding here, Gary, and this, you mentioned in the Troy game, I mean, it just looked like hope was lost and, come up with a fortunate play there. But, this team really is playing together, playing extremely well, the way they've responded, the way the coaches have held this together. And now, all of a sudden, you're playing Wake Forest, and people talk about, the competition. Well, I mean, Alabama's played great competition all year. I mean, they had, they were in that LSU series. They beat Vandy 2 out of 3. So they know what competition is. Yeah,
and I'll say this. Wake Forest has got dominant starting pitching at the top of their rotation, and you're playing up there. But, yeah, at this point in time, this is the bottom line, Rodney. There are 16 teams left. 8 of them are going to Omaha. Everybody's good. If you get to this point, it's got the NCAA tournament. You may not have the hoopla going in, but, if you get to the Sweet 16 or the Elite 8, you're good. Yeah. And so it wouldn't matter if Alabama was playing Wake Forest, they were playing someone else. You're going to have to earn it. I'm with you, Rod. I don't count this team out. I think the toughness of the SEC schedule, playing in the SEC tournament, having a very tough regional, has prepared Alabama well. Now you just have to go out and get it done, and we'll see if the Tide can do it beginning for Saturday. Actually, it's going to be a Saturday, Sunday, Monday if needed regional, 11 a.m. Central Time, the first game there in Winston-Salem against Wake Forest. The game times for Sunday and Monday if necessary have yet to be announced. All right, now it's time for Coach Talk. Alabama did have to battle through a very tough regional in Tuscaloosa, and if they want to move on to Omaha, as Rodney and I were discussing, they'll certainly have to go through one of the top teams in the country in Wake Forest. But interim head coach Jason Jackson, who's done a marvelous job, said earlier today that his team, they're not ready for it to end. They're ready to continue this run, and, they've got as good a shot as anybody.
The guys are going to be fired up. They know we're playing in a super regional. We're not going to try to downplay that, right? But I think that the beauty of this team, or one of the things that's made this team so special, is they are an older team with a lot of experience, and even though they haven't been in a super regional, they carry themselves like they've been there. And like I said, you look at their numbers and they all jump off the page at you, and you look at our numbers and you're like, our numbers are pretty dang good too, So I love my guys. I ain't trading them for anybody, I can tell you that.
All right, some notes on the regional. As we said, game 1 Saturday at 11 a.m. Central Time on ESPN. Wake Forest, the number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. In the regional, Rodney, how about this? They did dominate. They outscored their opponents 48-7. Junior Rhett Louder leads the strongest pitching staff in the country. The team ERA is nearly a full run better than second-place ERA team Tennessee. Louder is second nationally with a 1.77 earned run average and one of 3 Demon Deacons pitchers with at least 100 strikeouts. So, Rod, again, if Bama wins this regional, they will have earned their spot in Omaha. How about that?
Look, I hate to say this, but really, Gary, what this team has overcome, I mean, they've got so much mental toughness. It's going to be tough, no question about it. But listen, and you hate to say they've already accomplished more than maybe what you expected, but they really have so far. But you certainly hope that they can, have a good showing there at Wake Forest.
All right, Rod. The Alabama softball team's trip to the Women's College World Series was a short one. They went 2 and out. I don't think anybody's surprised by it. I think most of us feel like that maybe to some degree Alabama overachieved by making it to the Women's College World Series. But what did them in is really what had been their problem all year. They just couldn't generate enough offense. The pitching was fine, even against Tennessee, and then against Stanford, they lose 2-0. Montana pitched to beauty, but they got just one hit. And it's just a situation where even though you have to have pitching, we know that, or you won't get to the Women's College World Series. Once you get there against some of these clubs, you got to be able to score some runs, right? And so I think the challenge, while this was, anytime you go to the Women's College World Series, it's a great season. Let's be clear on that. That's 14 times for Alabama to do it. But to take the next step next year and to get back to, I think, actually being a serious national championship contender, you got to bolster the offense, right?
Yeah, I really believe that, Gary. And again, I understand Patrick Murphy said he's going to hire a hitting coach, which is good. You look at some of these other teams and the power that they bring, and that's something maybe that Alabama's lacked throughout the lineup. But you got to have that juice, man. I'm telling you got the pitching, but there comes a point in time when you've got to be able to swing the bat. Look at that.
All right, yeah, and recruiting is the way that you do that. All right, still to come on TITV, we are going to get to your phone calls, emails, and tweets. We always love engaging with our Tider Insider TV audience. There's the phone number, 205-348-9882. Go ahead and give us a call. I'm told phone lines are open right now, but they won't stay that way. Call now, 205-348-9882. We'll be right back with the only show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide, the one, the only Tider Insider TV. We were talking about Alabama softball needing to get some hitting in. Well, they got to get some pitching in, too, with Montana Fouts leaving. This may be the person to step right in. Central Arkansas transfer Kayla Beaver, who had a 1.15 ERA and over 200 innings pitched for Central Arkansas this past season. She announced she's transferring to the Crimson Tide to help out Jayla Torrance in the circle next season. All right, welcome back into TITV with Rodney Orr. I'm Gary Harris. Let's jump right out on the phone lines. Our pal Sammy up in Walker County leads us off. Hey, Sammy.
Hello, Gary. Hello, Rodney. Great job, guys.
Thanks.
The word is rain, 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 Gary. They're coming on, boy. They're looking great.
Talking about the tomatoes. Okay, good. Can't wait to see them. What you got for us, Sammy?
I got a two-part question.
Okay.
I want to know the status, if possible, about Eli Gold, and why does the second part, why is it so imperative the SEC officials are pushing this rushing the field? Why is that so imperative?
All right, Sammy, we'll tell you. First on Eli, I think he's hopeful based on some comments that he had recently that he'll be back calling games this fall in the booth for Alabama football. We don't know that for sure, but we're praying for him, and hopefully he'll be back. Rodney, as far as the celebration, the reason is we're getting close to having a major incident, Sammy. I mean, this is not just fun and games. When people are charging the field, people are getting knocked down, equipment is getting stolen and also destroyed. You're having players run into fans. I understand what you're saying, but these little mild-mannered celebrations aren't mild-mannered. They're potentially really, really troublesome, and you need to get a handle on it because they're getting more and more out of control.
Well, this isn't the 60s anymore.
No.
You remember they used to go on the field.
Yeah.
They used to remember they threw the toilet paper at Notre Dame, Gary, every time they'd have a big play and all these things. Things change, Sammy. It's not the same anymore. I understand what you're saying, but Gary's right. I mean, this is really dangerous. I think when you have crowds rush the field. Gary mentioned stolen equipment, which I think last year happened in Knoxville when Alabama was there. We saw the incident with Jermaine Burton. It's a matter of time before something really serious happens.
Indeed. All right, thanks for the phone call, Sammy. Putty and Alabaster, you hold tight. We'll get to you when we come back here on a Tuesday night in Tuscaloosa for TITV. All right, we've got Nick Saban and Terry Saban and the latest Habitat for Humanity House, number 20, through Nick's Kids Foundation this past Friday. This one's known as Sugar Bowl to celebrate the Sugar Bowl victory. Man, just great work through Nick's Kids and Habitat for Humanity. All right, welcome back in. Let's get out to our email of the day. And our email question of the day is brought to you by KDM Service Corporation, serving your family like our family. Let's get to it. And it is from Jim in Sparks, Nevada. I wanted to ask about softball recruiting with Fouts graduating. What's the pitching situation? Well, we just kind of ran it down with you with Beavers coming in. That's one part of it. Also, they've got a pitcher coming in out of Phoenix, Arizona named Jocelyn Brisky, who's very highly touted. So I think they're going to be fine pitching. They've also got Jenna Johnson's younger sister, Lauren Johnson, coming in to help as a position player. So I think they're going to recruit well and have a good recruiting class. All right, let's jump back out on the phone lines. Thanks for that email. And talk to Putty over in Alabaster. Hey, Putty.
Hey, Gary. Hey, Rodney. I just want to get your opinion on who's going to start at running back. I know Saban likes to start the more seasoned guys like McClellan and Roydell Williams, but I just think Jam Miller is the ticket to the future. I want y'all's opinion.
All right, Putty. They're all good. They're all talented. Rodney, who do you think will wind up winning that job?
You know, well, winning it in terms of the first guy out there would be Jace McClellan, be my opinion. And again, for some of the reasons you said, Putty, but look, I don't think we've seen the best of Jace McClellan. I think he was on his way, and then he got injured in the early in his sophomore year. I think Jace is a really good back, but there's going to be a lot of sharing going on. You got Jace, you got Roydell Williams, obviously. You've got Justice Haynes, who's really, really good too, a true freshman. And I agree with you, Putty. Jam Miller is really good too, and he's a guy that I think is going to contribute very strongly.
All right, thanks for the phone calls and the emails, and we'll be back to wrap up this edition of TITV on an absolutely spectacular evening in Tuscaloosa right after this. Former Alabama All-American quarterback Antonio Langham, forever remembered for this play to win the 1992 SEC Championship game against Florida, is on the College Football Hall of Fame ballot, released on Monday. The 1993 Jim Thorpe Award winner still holds the Alabama all-time interception mark with 19 picks during his 4-year career. He's one of the best to ever do it. Hopefully he'll get in the College Football Hall of Fame. The 2024 class will be officially inducted with an announcement later on this year. All right, that is going to do it for tonight's show. A reminder, you can catch a replay tonight at 10:30 on WVUA 23 or find it anytime at WVUA23.com. Rodney also links it at TiderInsider.com. For Rodney Orr, I am Gary Harris. Thanks for watching, and we'll be back again next week with another edition of TITV.